Hash the ghost house'th yellow tape fluttered in the midnight wind like dying butterflies. Its bold black letters do not cross a warning that Sarah Chen should have heeded. But the paranormal investigator had never been one to back down from a challenge, especially not when the Blackwood Estate promised to be the story of her career. 3 weeks had passed since the Riverside Police Department sealed off the property. 3 weeks since the Martinez family had vanished without a trace, leaving behind only their screams echoing through the 911 recording and a house that glowed with unnatural light. The local news had dubbed it the Ghost House Incident, but Sarah knew there was more to the story than mass hysteria. The house loomed before her, its Victorian silhouette carved against the bloated moon like a wound in the sky. Every window blazed with an impossible orange light, as if the building itself were burning from within. Yet no flames licked at the weathered siding. The glow pulsed with an organic rhythm, like a heartbeat made of fire. Sarah had studied the photographs taken by the first responders in daylight. The windows appeared normal, even boarded up, but when darkness fell, the house came alive. Her breath misted in the October air as she ducked under the police tape, her equipment bag heavy on her shoulder. The EMF detector was already clicking frantically, its needle buried deep in the red zone. The digital thermometer showed a steady drop in temperature with each step toward the house. 60 degrees, 55, 50. The closer she got, the colder it became. The cemetery stretched endlessly to her left, ancient headstones tilting at drunken angles like broken teeth in a giant's jaw. Fog rolled between the monuments, carrying with it the sweet stench of decay, and something else, something that made her stomach turn. One headstone caught her eye, larger than the rest, Kelvey Rodham's, 1823 to 1889. The letters barely visible on the crumbling granite. She'd researched the name extensively. The estate's original owner, a man rumored to have practiced dark arts, buried with his collection of occult artifacts and his 7 wives, all of whom had died under mysterious circumstances. The local historical society had been reluctant to share details, but Sarah had pieced together the truth. Rodham's had built the house as a gateway, a conduit between worlds. The basement had once housed his ritual chamber, where he'd attempted to breach the veil between life and death. According to the surviving records, he'd succeeded, but the price had been higher than he'd anticipated. A sound made her freeze. Laughter. No, something worse. The hollow, keening wail of something that had once been human, but was no longer. White shapes drifted between the bare branches of the oak trees, their forms shifting and writhing like smoke given malevolent purpose. As Sarah watched, transfixed with horror, the shapes began to take form, faces twisted in eternal agony, hands reaching out in desperate supplication, mouths open in silent screams that she could somehow hear anyway. Her camera raised automatically, the flash illuminating the spectral forms for a split second, in that brief moment of light, Sarah saw them clearly, dozens of them. Men and women and children, all dressed in clothing from different eras. The Martinez family was there too. Little Sophia still clutching her teddy bear, her parents standing protectively behind her, even in death. The hooded figure appeared without warning that it stood in the house's doorway. Impossibly tall and draped in shadow darker than the night itself, the darkness seemed to drink in the light around it, creating a void in reality where nothing should exist. Where its face should have been, the crimson stars burned with hungry light, boring into Sarah's soul with an intensity that made her knees buckle. "You shouldn't have come." The thing spoke, its voice layered with the screams of 1,000 victims. Each word reverberated through her bones, through the very air around her. "But now that you're here," the words Ghost House materialized on the figure's chest, bleeding letters that dripped with fresh horror. Each drop that hit the ground sizzled and steamed, eating through the earth like acid, leaving small craters of nothingness. The smell of sulfur filled the air, mixing with the scent of roses, the signature aroma of the supernatural. Sarah tried to run, but her legs wouldn't obey. Her body had become a prison, muscles locked in place by a will far stronger than her own. The spectral forms in the trees were descending now, their mouths open in silent screams, their ethereal hands reaching for her with desperate hunger. They moved with jerky, unnatural motions, like marionettes controlled by a sadistic puppeteer who delighted in their suffering. "Do you know what this place really is?" the hooded figure asked, taking a step forward. Where its foot touched the ground, the grass withered and died, spreading outward in a circle of absolute death. "It's not just a house. It's a collector, a harvester of souls." The building behind the figure seemed to respond to its words. The windows flared brighter, and Sarah could see shapes moving within shadows of the tormented souls trapped inside. The building itself seemed to breathe, its walls expanding and contracting with each ghostly respiration. The very foundation groaned with the weight of accumulated suffering. Kelvey Rodhams thought he could control it. The figure continued, its burning eyes never leaving Sarah's face. He thought he could use it to gain immortality, to cheat death itself, and in a way, he succeeded. He's still here, you know, still trapped, still screaming, somewhere in the basement, where his body finally gave out. Sarah's voice returned in a whisper. What are you?" The figure laughed, a sound like breaking glass mixed with dying breath. "I am what remains when hope dies. I am the accumulated despair of everyone who ever crossed that threshold. I am the ghost house given form and purpose." The house's door swung open behind the figure, revealing a corridor that stretched impossibly far into darkness. The orange light from the windows cast dancing shadows on the walls, shadows that moved independently of any light source. Sarah could hear sounds from within, footsteps on creaking floorboards, children's laughter that turned to sobs, doors slamming in empty rooms. "Come inside," the figure whispered, extending one skeletal hand. Where its fingers touched, reality itself seemed to wither and die, leaving holes in the fabric of existence. Join our collection. Become part of something eternal. Sarah felt her feet beginning to move against her will, drawn by a power she couldn't comprehend. Each step brought fresh horror. She could see into the house now, see the faces pressed against the windows from the inside, their mouths open in eternal screams. She recognized some of them from missing person reports dating back decades. The house had been feeding for a long time. "Welcome to my collection," the hooded figure whispered as Sarah reached the threshold. "You'll make a fine addition." The last thing Sarah saw before the darkness claimed her was her own reflection in those burning red eyes. But it wasn't her face looking back. It was the face of everyone who had ever crossed that threshold. All of them screaming in unison. All of them trapped forever in the ghost house's hungry embrace. The door slammed shut with a sound like thunder, and the windows went dark for exactly 13 seconds. When the light returned, there was a new face pressed against the glass. Sarah's face mouth open in a scream that would never end. The yellow tape continued to flutter in the wind, but now it bore a new message in dripping crimson letters. "Do not cross or become one of us." Above the house, the moon turned red, and somewhere in the distance, church bells began to toll 13 times, once for each soul the ghost house had claimed that night. And in the morning, when the police found Sarah's abandoned car, they would add another strip of yellow tape to the barriers. Detective Morrison would shake his head and mutter about urban explorers who never learned, never knowing that the house was already selecting its next victim from among the curious officers examining the scene. But it wouldn't matter. The ghost house was patient. It could wait for the next curious soul to ignore the warnings and step into its embrace. After all, it had an eternity to feed, and the collection was far from complete.